So, thank you for coming. Today we're going to talk about gestational things. Before I start, though, my team, I did my first video under 15 minutes, and they gave me these. I have a turtle thing. Turtles are one of my the entities that I connect well with, and my team signed the certificate. So it's a certificate of first video under 15 minutes. I'm not sure we'll do that all the time, but it's and I do love turtles. So,
would you mind spelling out the word that you said the subject is?
Yeah, I'll spell it out. I'll draw it out actually.
Sure.
It'll be crystal clear. So we're going to talk about So we're going to talk a little bit about gestational. Call it trauma, neglect, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to talk about preverbal. So bolan to pehla. So this isn't a subject I've really talked much about because lots to talk about. But it's an important one, which is from the point of conception all the way to 3 to 4 years old. Is a time of learning. And it's pretty much entirely emotional learning. This is the peak of emotional learning, and from after this begins cortical learning or intellectual learning. Right? You start to make sentences, you start to learn to tell stories, grammar. ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਰਹਿਣਾ, practical things, right? Language, finances, social studies. All of that is cortical learning because you need to hold a memory. So most people, they can't remember much before 4 years old. Some people can't remember after that either, but that's a different thing, different subject. But most people can't hold too much mental memory before the age of 4. So 4 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਯਾਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਵਾਲਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ. But that doesn't mean there's nothing to remember, because the bulk of the learning. So if I'm talking about information. So learning efficiency. Learning efficiency ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਛੇਤੀ ਆਦਮੀ ਸਿੱਖਦਾ, the fastest learning happens right at the point of conception, and it's at a steep decline. And this is kind of from the point of conception to about, let's say 4 years old. So the bulk of the emotional struggle, sara jada andar emotional kutte da nappe da, all of the emotions that you have in your subconscious. Well, let me ask you, which is the bigger area under the curve? Is there more area here or is there more area here? Which one has more area? This one? Is it the red one? ਵੱਡਾ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ? ਆ ਜਾਂ ਆ? This is bigger. So in mathematics, we call this the area under the curve. So this is way more than this. In terms of, we talked about the subconscious, right? So your subconscious, we have our usual diagram. So what this means, practically, here's what this means. It means your brain is full of stuff, and a heck of a lot more of it that's causing you problems is it's kind of like this. Okay? So if we're talking about the trillion bits of information, sari information subconscious, jedi tangi hai, the vast majority of it is not what you remember cortically. Jedi yadasht vich hai, it's what you are holding emotionally in the body, saririk taur vich. This is very important that you understand. Does that make sense, this diagram? And yet, what do people focus on? Where do people put all their energy?
Preschool. Preschool.
They focus on this, or do they focus on this? Where do parents spend the most money on children?
That is
Any parents agree with that? Any parents here?
Diapers are expensive.
They are expensive, but are they more expensive than going to university, going to school, going to buying clothes? What's more expensive?
Schools, clothes, extracurricular, definitely art fees.
Yeah, so if this is, like if I had this green, right, I'm just going to draw it like in dotted line, the expenses. Sure, like, there's a bit of an expense at the beginning. But when do parents start spending money? Right?
9 months before.
It costs, at least in the 90s and early 2000s, it's said that a child, congratulations, you've had a child cough up $300,000. That's what it cost back then. It costs more. वो कहंदे हैं जवाक नु पालन वास्ते $10 lakh lag.
No wonder we're in debt.
So congratulations, cough up $300,000. And what's the distribution of the $300,000?
35 years old.
It's not here, right? People spend their money in the later time, right?
Yeah.
They spend it, this thing goes up to 25 years old, right? The bulk of the money gets spent on that. Someone got married, they spent $1 million on their wedding. But the important learning that messes people up, people think, babies, what are they learning? It's like feed them until they get bigger, and once they get bigger, we can start teaching them things. But the baby's learning. But what kind of stuff is a baby learning? Inside the womb. Inside the womb, baby's learning, is the world safe? Baby ki sikda? Jo paida hunda? Duniya vadiya? Ja katiya? Am I safe? Can I surrender? All of your blocks. You can't surrender. You can't give yourself to anything. Where does that start? It starts when you're not safe in the womb and you're like, screw this. I'm not, this isn't cool. People are yelling out there and they're drinking and drugging and tanga, stenchen cha, ladai chagda. Domestic violence is the worst. In the womb, it's the worst. because it really messes a kid up. But that kid will never remember that. Actually, in trauma therapy, you can go back there and you can remember. This is when I became convinced. I used to also think this was ridiculous. मैं भी सोचता था ये ठीक नहीं सीगा. Until I started working and learning about how to process this stuff, did it on myself, it helps a lot. The information in the subconscious that we collect, a lot of it has to do with this time period. And the thing is, I love this guy. It's great. This is how you want to, when you're a pregnant mom, this is how you want to be. In traditions across the world, Punjabi Sikhs, ladies ਕੀ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ pregnant ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਪਾਠ ਸੁਖਮਨੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ. So Punjabi or Sikh women, when they're pregnant, it's passed down the generations that you do a particular prayer and you keep doing it. It's called the Psalm of Peace. Why? Because learning is happening. That kid is going to be really angry. People think anger is driven by abuse. It's not. Anger is not driven by abuse. Gussa, je tade ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਧੋਖਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਚੜਦਾ, that's not the primary sort of main source of anger. Anger is driven by neglect. When you get ignored. ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਇਗਨੋਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਚੜਦਾ. It's not when someone punches you in the face. At least they're paying attention to you. May not feel great, but your body is way better with that than it is with being ignored. So think about that. This is like pretend this is a smartphone. Oh yeah, rock the baby. Baby's tuned in. Babies are only paying attention to mom. Yeah, rock the baby. Yeah, oh yeah. What do you think that baby's learning? What? The phone's more important. Interesting fact. When there's like a smartphone in the room, you know, kamre ch smartphone hega. They've done studies. I don't know how they've studied this, but they've done it, and I believe them. Babies don't know what a smartphone is. They think that's another person. So like if there's like 3 people in a room and the baby and someone has a smartphone, the baby will think there's 4 people in the room. And guess who's more important than the baby? Breastfeeding. I've seen it. And I don't blame it either. Because when you're disturbed, when you're not... What's another wisdom passed down through the ages? When someone is pregnant, you help them out. When someone's in the first couple of pehla saal, ਜਦੋਂ ਕੋਈ pregnant ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰੋ. Maximum. First 40 days. This comes from yoga. After birth, first 40 days, don't let that mother get up and do anything. Treat her like a queen. Let her sit there. Bond. Punjabi ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ? Oh, roti paka de. What does a Punjabi man do to his wife who's like, you know, make some roti, clean the thing, go to work, do this, do that. But in 20 years, when you're getting the drug addiction bill from the treatment center, yeah, That's going to all come back. That's why they give these wisdoms. Because emotional learning happens in the first 4 years, and a lot of it happens inside the womb. Very interesting thing is, and these things will come out, there's ways to heal this. You can put it in your prayers. There's all sorts of ways to heal, but it's better to not have it in the first place. That's the best, or to have as little of it. People are blaming the pregnant moms, but it's the family unit, right? And it's not their fault when rent is like $2,000 and people can't afford, right? Then it's a societal issue. And we're, as treatment professionals, I'm not worried about getting out of a job anytime soon. Because what's coming is, the neglect generation is coming. This generation is being grown right now. That crop is going to be harvested by society, and it's going to be not much fun. So, I just wanted to share with you the science of what is filling up your subconscious. Where do you put your energy at healing? And why do you put all the efforts in and don't get the benefit? When people like that come to me, I typically will do this kind of work. And this kind of work oftentimes reduces the chronic pain. It reduces the anxiety. A lot of suicidality comes, for example, if your mother says, this is actually, sadly this is common, right? Mother says to kid, I tried to get an abortion, it didn't work. And here you are. First of all, you didn't have to tell the kid that. The kid knew. At some level, the kid will always know that they're not welcome. Now, you may not believe me, but when you hypnotically put a person in a trance, they can go back and see these things. But even if they can't go back and see these things, they are causing stress. This lecture we did yesterday, stress, people think they're not stressed, their stress level is at a 0, but actually it's at like a 6. This is the kind of stuff that's fueling that. This is the kind of stuff that's pushing that. It's all outside of your memory. So it's not a yadash to bara. But just because yadash to bara, just because it's outside of memory, does not mean it's not relevant. And this is a very important part of healing that people don't really talk about. Us trauma therapists that do deep trauma therapy work, we know this. This is like old. The first articles published about this kind of stuff are like 30 years old that I can find. You have to deal with this kind of work to deal with parts. The origin of parts is here. This is where your core cadre of parts gets programmed. Most of them. And then the parts, once they're programmed, right, let's say your mind is split into all these parts, and then as time goes on, those parts then gain experience. Yeah, I knew I was never welcomed, my mom never wanted me, and then she hit me. And then she prioritized, drugs over me. She did this. The parts start to gain weight. But the actual parts themselves, they come because at this time we are very dissociated. That's why children are always imagining, right? Imagine this, imagine that. They're playing with nothing. They may even talk to this turtle. They live in a different universe, children. That's a dissociative universe. So, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਉੱਧਰ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ they're playing, but their play is very serious therapy. when children are playing, it's the best thing you can do to heal that child is to play with them at their level like they are. The worst thing you can do is lecture to them. Teach them stuff when their brain can handle it. One of the epidemics of actual, another wisdom throughout the ages, I'll share this here, it's not overly controversial, maybe it is, but potty training. What's the age that people potty train? Kede saal te potty training shuru kar diya? Just yell it out. 2 years old. Kede saal te potty training shuru ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ? 3, 2, 3. Potty training, like potty to potty, टट्टी पेशाब किमें कदों रुकना टॉयलेट सीट जाना कदों शुरू कर दे? 4 years old, 3 years old, and why? क्यों? Why at 3 years old? क्यों 3 साल तक कर दे? So what he's saying is that that's the age. Essentially what he's saying, they can start to understand why, what's happening. You can work with them. Has anyone potty trained? Is it fun?
It depends on the child.
The vast majority is not just not fun, it is traumatic. Because when things are happening to you and you don't understand, the parents mean love, but the child feels they don't want me. Why are they yelling at me? They don't understand. And from that, they're deriving a conclusion, which is the world's not safe, not wanted. It's another thing. And I thought that, and this is recommended, at least it was a couple of years ago, by the Pediatric Society. And I thought that was normal. As a family doctor, that's what I was recommending too. But then I asked my wife, who was born in a village in India, how do they do potty training? Because I saw my nephew go through it, mera patija, and it was just hard to watch. Because the parents meant well, but got a household to run, schedule to keep, and the kid's just not pooping. It gets emotional. It gets hard. But in the village, you know what age they start? They start like at 3 months old. 10 minutes shuru kar de, 6 minutes. What do? They take the kid out, and then they know, you know when a baby's gonna pee. Like every couple of hours you breastfeed them or you milk feed them, and then you know they're gonna pee in a certain time. So you time void them. And then you make a sound, and then they pee. And they learn control. They learn without the trauma and neglect. This is in the village, man. And by the time they're 2 years old, they're ready for scheduled voiding. They don't mind sitting in a toilet seat. And there's no punishment. Because the only reason you have to punish a 3-4-year-old, because they can run and walk around and run. So I'm just trying to explain a little bit about how well-meaning systems of child rearing are producing full subconscious garbage cans that then later on in life cost a lot. And what's done is done. Not to shame, everyone can do better, and everyone is doing the best they can with what they have. Hurt people, hurt people. Heal people, heal people. It's simple. It's not complicated. But let's not make it worse. My job is to teach you, for those who want to know, that paying attention to the preverbal stuff is very helpful. Quick question, Pushni Siji?
नहीं।
Okay. Any questions about this? So today we basically just talked about gestational trauma. Starts at the point of conception. Welcome or not, there's milestones in there, right? Like birth trauma. It's crazy. Kids, the adopted children who know nothing about their history, they'll be like, yeah, this happened. And then they go and find the hospital records, and sure enough, they were forceps. They had a cord around their neck. One lady, she was like having such short of breath, and we resolved something in, I don't know, that period somewhere. We used flash therapy to do it, and she never had that shortness of breath again. The panic attack went away. These things are very relevant. And so, somatic practitioners, they work a lot in this. So in your body, we've said before many times, you forget nothing in life, and you don't forget anything that happens even before you're born. So, doing recovery with children before the age of 4, when they're pregnant in the womb, changiyan cheezain gurdware jao, paath karo. Your children will have a good foundation. And like any house, a house built on a good foundation will not fall. Or if there's an earthquake, it's not going to break as much. But if your foundation is kind of like, then, building like a house on that is like, it's just a matter of time. It's not going to be as resilient. So what we're talking about is foundation building. And if you're in recovery right now, find somebody in your life that does this kind of work. You can find it. It's out there. Lots of it. Both log hai gaya. And it's a good thing to sort of get done. Not an easy thing to do, but it is a good thing. Yes?
So, if you experience gestational trauma, can that also, impact you on how you act as a kid, in the day-to-day life? Can you have, PTSD symptoms from that?
Of course. 100%. Because it's stacked. It's just like a house. We build a house, and as time goes on, we just build bigger houses, and then we build houses on houses. Your most important house was built at by 4 years old, and then everything after that is like a skyscraper. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That it's not just can it always does stack. The memories always stack. And so this idea of parts, angry parts, defensive parts, they're the early and most powerful parts. They come from the early times, and that's why they're very simple. They're very defensive. They're very hostile sometimes. They have a lot of energy. It's all points to younger parts. So, yes?
I'm curious to see how this relates to intergenerational trauma. So you had mentioned that neglect can manifest into anger, and how does that affect the next generation?
It absolutely ties in. It's actually how it works. So traumatized people have children who are traumatized. How? So we'll go with immigration trauma. So if there's a big war, people are cast out, all of a sudden, or immigration comes, you just suddenly leave, ek desh to jaake dusre desh shuru kar dein. Neglect. What is neglect? Neglect is not giving the attention that is needed at the time. But if you don't have food to eat, well, that's pretty bad for the child too. So it's good to focus on getting the money, getting the food, getting all of these needs met. And immigrants do that very well. But they oftentimes do it at the cost of emotional neglect. They'll make it up in nice things, or they will figure out a different way to reward behavior. And that is what propagates intergenerational trauma, is you get neglect. So immigration messes up 3 generations at a minimum. It messes up the parents of the immigrants, it messes up the children, or the immigrants themselves. It's a massive load of stress without resources to cope. And it messes up the kids. It messes up the kids because of the neglect. Because of the, at the time of immigration, it's also the time of marriage. It's also the time of, some people that got married over there, they came here. Some people came over here and got married in that tumultuous period. And then they had babies in that period. I remember my mom, she was telling me, she had me and she was like working in like 3-4 weeks. Don't know how, but that's what it was back then. That was common. So then we have to heal from that. It's a part of our story. So intergenerational, that's how it's passed. Mom's working really hard during pregnancy, not able to sit down and meditate and connect with the fetus. These are important things. And not doing that just creates more of the non-safety, which means it's not that learning can't happen after 25. It just takes a long time. To learn 1 day of stuff over here may take you like 300 days here. But you can do it, just you have to spend 300 days. एक दिन जड़ी तुसी ऐथे सीख सकते सी तेनों ऐथे 300 दिन लगेंगे, 30 दिन लगेंगे, right? It's doable, but you have to do it. It's not going to come like that. So prevention is worth an ounce of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And this lecture is about both things. Some people in recovery have not had children. Please be mindful of this. Some people in recovery have children. Please be mindful of this. Get this kind of therapy for your kids. Some people, they are this. Please figure that out. Think about that. Ask about that. And you'll find that it's another thing that helps. Okay? 32 minutes. I'm not going to get a certificate today, but it's 32 minutes. So we'll leave it at that.